Okay, we're rounding up now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give every member of the panel an opportunity to make a closing statement, and if you want to respond to the comments or the questions that were asked, you can do that. You have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. I'll start with Rashid on my far right.
Thank you for that opportunity. Generally, I want to comment on basic education. At the university level, it is always a tradition that when we discuss curriculum, then we always say that we want to link the curriculum of the university with the world of work. This has always been theoretical for years. When exactly will our university start ensuring that we bring the world of work down to the university as part of the participant in the development of the curriculum? That is one. Then two, when it comes to basic education, we've been talking of teachers. But in the past, we used to have department of the federal ministry and state ministry, the inspectorate division, to ensure quality. For now, for years, that department has been somehow, not to actually performing. When we're in primary schools, our teachers were always conscious that one day inspectors will come and they're always on their toes. Let's revive this so as to ensure that the quality of our basic education improved. And lastly, the National Assembly, they are always on oversight functions to activities performed by parastatals. But those parastatals that have no funds to perform, in most cases, they don't normally go there for oversight functions. So I'm saying there is need, going back for equality, equitable, and judicious utilization of resources. Let me tell you, Nigeria as of today has invested a lot in basic education. In education, for example, look at the TED Fund. I saw an example in Brazil. They call it Zena. Zena collect money from industries. And the management of that Zena is not governmental.
Okay, you have to.
It's representative of industry preside over such organization. So from there, the impact on the training of junior workers in Brazil, which is not so in Nigeria.
Thank you. It's Ronke.
Thank you.
Can we focus on the purpose of education in your round of speech? Let's have, a direct link between what is the purpose for education in Nigeria and what are the solutions that we have been able to gather from all the conversations held this morning, as well as the comments from the audience. And then if there's any way you want to respond to any of those.
I would just like us to not to forget, I think Dr. Obi alluded to that, and that is in terms of the purpose for education, and one of it could be about the social values and attitude. And I feel that it is really the foundation for any success in terms of moving forward. We know right now that there's a lot of governance issues. And for us to make it and imbibe social values into our system, it requires a long-term solution. But in order to start, it has to be all of us, not only in the schools, but in terms of us as well, us as the community, us as the teachers, us as the government. Because we cannot be practicing one thing and then expecting them, as we say, to do something else. We cannot be just advertising social orientation in the media, but we ourselves are not the ones that, we are not the mentor or yes, that our children aspire to be. And I think that there's something in that in terms of governance, that there's a need for us to really look at that issue, and that we here should be the leaders, we should be ones that start that process.
Mr. Wale?
Thank you very much, Nicholas.
Let's give the purpose for education, and let's link it to all the comments that have been made here and some of the comments from the floor.
All right, thank you very much. I think that I like to take away things from occasions like this, and what I'd like to talk about is the funding of education, particularly the training of teachers. I think it's really important that we start to glamorize education, make it attractive, make it interesting for people to actually go to university and study education courses, because we're talking about all these things. If we don't train the teachers, we're not going to get the kind of products that we're looking at. As a corporate, I think that I'd also like to use this opportunity to talk to all the educational stakeholders in here that MTN Nigeria has a scholarship for students in education. We have found out that a lot of scholarship schemes tend to focus on the more glamorous type courses, and as a business, we've decided that we will fund, we will encourage people to go and learn and teach education in our universities. So we're also very open to ideas in terms of funding collaborations with people in the education sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. How do we link the purpose for education for Nigeria vis-a-vis what you explained as the purpose that Singapore was able to identify and obviously was able to be very successful at it? You know, we are struggling with identifying what is our purpose for education.
Returning to the fundamentals, I think the crisis that I hear is in education today is the slide that we have been sliding from our primary purpose, which is to teach people how to live, character, values, principles. We slide and went down to the other end where we are teaching people how to make a living. We are not saying that either or, we need both, but we have been neglecting the first one. That's why we're in trouble. So we need to get back to having both, an emphasis in teaching people how to live and also teach them how to make a living. This crisis will take care, if we address and come up with solutions, then we will have a group of people that is relevant to the economic development and to our society. When I'm asked to interview someone, to select a candidate for an important job, 3 things I look for. Number 1, what? Character. Character first, then competencies. If you start with competency, you are in trouble. Because if you start by saying, I want the best IT man in my company, yes, he can do everything. He can do Oracle, he can do Microsoft, he can do somersault, everything. But if you're not careful, you are hiring a thief. Because when you are not looking, he's stealing. So character comes first. Then competency. And then thirdly, chemistry. Can he work with others? Then, second solution in our crisis today, we have been neglecting to invest and to build capacity in education. From what has been brought up, the national budget is not reflecting the seriousness of the crisis. Then we need to pay our teachers well. When I was growing up in Singapore, you know, I was singing God Save the King before the Queen became Queen. Teachers is a place when you cannot find any other job in the country, then you apply to be a teacher. That was the day. Salary was bad. No wonder we had a terrible educational system. Today is different. If you don't come out with a bachelor's degree with honors, we don't want you to be a teacher. And we pay our teachers benchmark with the private sector. We pay our teachers well. And then we continue to if you have good teachers, you have good students. So facilities and all the things we talk about, you send your best curriculum people to the best schools of education, centers of education to learn. And then we must always be ready for the change. We have looked carefully. We started with labor-intensive industries. Then when we went to capital intensive and technology intensive, we got it right. We became very good in technology industries. But we make mistakes too. We miss one very important trend. That was the wireless mobile technology. The other countries like Korea and Japan, they caught it quickly. But we got another thing right. And there was a next phase called the knowledge-based industry. Today, Singapore is #1 in the world. All the biggest knowledge-based industries are based in Singapore. But we scanned the horizon and know it was coming, and we prepared our educational system for it.
Thank you.
We begin to offer courses in bioengineering, biogenetics, so that we become the best in the world now in that area. So you need to be preparing your people so that while they are men and women of character, they are also competent. One last thought. Singapore is #1 port in the world. 90% of the goods that come to Singapore get re-exported, redistributed. African business leaders will fly to Singapore to buy their goods and their supplies. For example, palm oil, rubber. Instead of going to Malaysia and Indonesia where they are grown. Why? Because Singapore, when you go to Singapore, you know, you do business with integrity. Nobody cheats you, nobody lies to you.
Thank
If you
you.
ask for A, B, or C grade, you get what you pay for. If you ask for A, you don't get B or C. And we make sure you are standardized. People won't go to Malaysia or Indonesia. They come to Singapore and order hundreds of containers. And we standardize and make sure. So you must prepare yourself. The soft part of it is that people must be able to trust Kenya and Nigeria. I'm an advisor to the Economic and Social Council of Kenya in the Office of the President. And so we must build and change the image of Nigeria, that this is a good place to do business. And this is a good place to invest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor. Your Excellency, Victor has, made it very clear that, the purpose of education for Singapore was clearly defined. And when you clearly define a goal or an objective, the chances are that you will hit that goal. Can you clearly define the purpose of education for Nigeria, and especially for Osun State, as you are at the helm of affairs of that department?
Thank you. For us in Nigeria, if we check the philosophy of Nigerian education, education in Nigeria is supposed to produce a total man. And that is what we're focusing on in the state of Osun. A man that will be self-reliant, a woman, or a person that will be self-reliant and will be able to contribute to the national development. But again, Nigeria as a government has to invest heavily in education. Funding education is so paramount, because if we do not fund education, we can move. An uneducated workforce will create problems for the country. They will create poverty, they will create social unrest, there will be menace to the society, and it will cost the Nigerian government more to maintain an uneducated workforce, because we'll be relying on expatriates to work in Nigeria. To run our economy, we'll be relying on expatriates rather than spend money on our children, spend money on our citizens, educate our people. Let us have outstanding men and women that can effectively grow the economy of Nigeria by spending on education. We have brilliant people in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Dr. Ezekwesili, you've heard from the other speakers, you've heard from the audience. Are we missing something here? Because we talk about education being the ultimate goal, if you hear from Her Excellency. But remember that the question is, what is the purpose of education? So if you have an educated workforce and they don't have jobs, they don't have opportunities, what happens? We have simply escalated the problem. Because as you said in your speech, you have a sophisticated armed robber or a sophisticated kidnapper who now has an education. So how can we now link the real purpose of education to opportunities for the Nigerian people, to jobs, to business opportunities, to entrepreneurship, all those other areas that become important and may be the ultimate goal?
Education doesn't happen as a silo. Education influences society, and society influences education. And so first and fundamental is going to be, what is the vision of this society? I think that that vision was expressed at different times by different administrations. One of the greatest dangers that we see in public policy today in our democracy is a tendency to completely disregard everything that was done before you got there. It is unfair to the citizens. And so it is necessary that we should remember some of the fundamental visioning that went into the process of defining a vision for education.